Hi, I'm Chris Fleming, the creator of Spirit Talk. You're listening to the podcast where I'll be bringing you the greatest thinkers, researchers, and contributors from around the world to discuss what we know in the field of the paranormal, life after death, and the pursuit of higher consciousness. Welcome to Spirit Talk. This is your host, Chris Fleming, and this is the February edition for 2020. Thank you for listening. And for those of you that don't know, I co-present a TV show in the UK called Help My House is Haunted with my co-presenters Barry Guy and Jane Harris. And we go from home to home, location to location, helping people that are having paranormal phenomena go on. In most cases, it's disturbing, and they want answers. They want either to get rid of it or they want some type of resolution. Well, we shot our whole season for second season last summer, and the second season just aired in the UK on Really TV. It's a UK TV channel that is now owned by Discovery. It's currently airing in Canada at this moment, and 3 or 4 other countries, I believe France, Germany, Asia, and I know there's another country, and I don't know what it is. They don't tell us what all countries are airing the show during the distribution, but we tend to hear from secondhand information. But why am I bringing that up? Well, we're waiting to hear for a third season, so we're all keeping our fingers crossed. We're very passionate and committed to this program and to helping people, as well as the incredible discoveries that we find. The topic I want to talk about this podcast is about past lives and alternate realities, these parallel universes of our personalities and our consciousness that we're experiencing. Now, I know it's going to be crazy, some of the stuff you're going to hear on this show, but I'm going to share with you what I know and what I have experienced. Now, this is wild stuff, and it's changed my perception of what I believe is reality. The question always becomes, what is reality? Well, we have many realities going on simultaneously, as well as our experiences that are still with us, that are in our subconscious. But then also, before we were even born, experiences that our soul has had that can be accessed. And it's even interesting when we talk about ghosts, because here's the thing. When we come in contact with these ghosts and spirits at various locations, especially in Europe and the UK, we're coming in contact with spirits that have been there for hundreds, if not over 1,000 years. And it's interesting to know that obviously their time period is completely different than ours. But yet here they are in present day, their personalities still here. Yet many of them still think it's the past, and they have not moved on. So I thought, you know what? I've come in contact with Roman soldiers, certain cults, people that have been in the military, people that have been nurses, doctors, and even children, mothers and fathers, villagers, many different types of spirits. And I reflect back years ago when I had some hypnotic regressions. And I went back to my childhood to relive and see my childhood experiences of ghosts from an adult perspective, but tapping back into my subconscious of those memories. But I've also had the opportunity to have past life regressions. And I want to share with you some of those experiences. Many of you have always been interested in past lives or wondering if there are alternate realities. Let's talk about past lives. According to liveabout.com, the idea that people are born and reborn, that we have all had past lives, actually dates back to at least 3,000 years. Those who believe in reincarnation say clues about our past lives can be found in our dreams, our bodies, and our souls. Sometimes birthmarks are believed to represent a scar or an area of our demise in a previous life. Now, according to Britannica, Plato in the 5th to 4th century BCE believed in an immortal soul that participates in frequent incarnations. The major religions all over the world that hold a belief in reincarnation are Asian religions, mostly, but especially Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, all of which arose in India. They have that belief system. Now, to access this past life, what do? Well, you have a hypnotic regression with a professional that's been trained to put you into this relaxed state and access that consciousness. See, past life regression is a technique. It uses hypnosis to recover what these practitioners believe are memories of past lives or incarnations. Past life regression is typically undertaken either in pursuit of a spiritual experience or in a psychotherapeutic setting. What some of these professionals do is they will take you in between lives to speak to your guides, your elders, and the Akashic records to work on things within this life. But sometimes things that are going on in this life that are causing you major problems, setbacks, walls, attachments, oppression, can be something that occurred in a past life. And you've brought that pain, that karma, that problem into this life. Some of you would be going, okay, well, where's the proof? Well, it all comes down to opinion and people's personal experiences, as well as professionals' testimonies of what they've uncovered. But you always hear stories about children or people that have stated they've had this previous life and they were so-and-so. And when they go and do the research, they're finding details that they knew, as well as sometimes the photographs, they look just like them. So it looks like that when we come back in some of our lives, we take on the same or similar appearance. Now, I mentioned birthmarks, and there's stories that these individuals that have birthmarks represents an injury or infliction in that area from a previous life. Sounds crazy, right? Well, I'm going to share with you a story, a past life regression I had involving someone within this life that had a birthmark and a story behind it. The third thing that's going to be incorporated in this podcast is deja vu. There's many different interpretations of it, but the basic ones are that I feel like I've been here before. So was it in a past life that I was here? Yeah, possibly. But also an alternate reality that your other self has been there before your present self has. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll get into that. When they say you're going to go down the rabbit hole, well, we are going to deep dive into these two topics based on what I know and my experiences, which will, I believe, open up your mind to the reality of these topics. We'll be right back. People are always asking me, Chris, do you do readings? Do you do any type of spiritual consultations? Well, yes, I do. And I've been doing this for about 15 years, offering my services to people that are looking to take a look at their present day life, what's going on, trying to communicate with a loved one on the other side, get an understanding of what their purpose is or their desire is within this life, or if there's things bothering you, how can you resolve it? Well, jump on the internet, use one of the search engines, and search for Chris Fleming, that's Fleming, Genbook, Genbook. You'll see a couple links pop up. Choose the one with my name and Genbook, and you will come to my Genbook page. On that page, you're going to see reviews, which are past clients that I've had over the years, what they've thought, as well as where it says book, you're going to see the different type of services, the consultations I do with spirit, courses and training that I offer, either face-to-face or over the phone, and even some home cleansings, which we can do over the phone, or if you're local, I can travel to your destination. But then also, I offer spirit art, where I will connect with your guides and your spirit and draw what I see. But you might be thinking, what are the most popular services? Which one should I choose? Well, if you've got questions that you have, stuff going on in your life, like your child is dealing with something, or you're wondering about this paranormal experience, choose the question and answer consultation session. If you're just looking for a regular psychic reading, book the 45-minute spiritual consultation, which we'll do over the phone, or if you're local, we can do face-to-face at my location. It's pretty easy to book. All you do is you select the service that you're interested in. Then it takes you automatically to the calendar. You look at the date and times that are available in the next couple weeks. You select that date and time, and please keep in mind, it is Central Time. So depending upon whether you are the West Coast, East Coast, or if you are GMT, you are overseas internationally, look at the time difference. And that time difference, based on your time, would be the time that you call me. Once you've selected the date and time, the next field pops up where you put your name, your email address, and your phone number. Please keep in mind, GenBook does have a bug for international calls, so it will not accept an international phone number. In that case, just type in a 10-digit phone number to appease the field. And then in the comment section, mention your actual phone number in case I need to get a hold of you. Please remember to make sure that your email is accurate too, so that you do get follow-ups and confirmations. And then once that's done, it takes you to the payment page. You can make payment, and it's booked. I will get an email confirmation of when you have registered, and then we will be speaking on the date and time. There you go. Book your session today. All right, we're back. Dun, 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 dun. If only I could play their music. Anyways, you're listening to Chris Fleming with Spirit Talk, and let's dive in. Past life regressions, alternate reality experiences, and we're going to throw Deja Vu in there. So let's start off with the regressions. Now, you've heard about hypnotic regressions where you can go back to your childhood and you kind of relive experiences. And this is really an interesting thing because I remember in the 90s, my dad and I weren't talking. We had some falling outs. My dad was a Taurus. I'm a Taurus. We're both stubborn. You know how that goes. And there was a period of time we didn't talk. And my mom was a little upset about that. Now, my parents were divorced, but my mom was upset about that. She says, you need to talk to your dad. I said, I'm not talking to my dad. So she says, you know what? I'd like you to go see someone to talk about this. Now, I've always been fascinated by psychology. You know, I got a minor in psychology. You know, and I'm talking to people about the paranormal here and there. And I'm thinking, like, you know what? Maybe I'll go see someone. This would be interesting. So my mom sets up this appointment. I go see this psychiatrist in Palatine, Illinois. And we sit down. We talk about my dad. I saw him over a couple of months, and we talked about my dad. We didn't talk anything about the paranormal. But I was intrigued because this guy was good. I liked him. He knew his stuff. And we were breaking down some of those barriers and the differences between me and my dad. And I asked him, I said, do you know anything about regressions? I mean, going back to childhood experiences. Like, oh, yeah, I do hypnotic regressions. I go, get out of here. It's like, no, seriously. So I told him there was an experience I wanted to go back to, something really bizarre that happened when I was in first, second grade, that I didn't tell him it was paranormal. I just said, I'd like to go back. It happened on Easter, and I would like to go back and kind of relive it and see if it is what I think it is. Because for me, it was very bizarre and still unexplained to a degree. But it was something that I talked a lot about growing up when I was in grade school. I mean, I told kids at school, people in high school, in college, and, some of my ex-girlfriends know about it as well. But it's something I just don't want to go public with at this time, and I want to research more before I write a book about it and speak about it. So this psychologist says, yes, we can do this. We can do this regression, without telling him anything about why I wanted to go back to that time. Puts me into this regression, tells me to start focusing, and he starts counting, and I'm imagining this window, he says, which is my old house. I'm going to start looking through it. Next thing you know, I'm actually back in time. And it worked. I was there in that memory. The interesting thing about doing a regression back to your childhood is that you go back to that memory, and what happens is they can actually freeze it, and you can look around the room. The room that your memory has recorded from the past, and you can look around, you can see some of the details. I remember looking down at my legs, and I started laughing because my legs were shorter, and I was wearing these baby duck pajamas. And I couldn't believe, here's my present conscious mind that is now back in a memory of my childhood body, and I'm seeing the things in my room that I forgot I had, including the pajamas. So lo and behold, we reveal this experience, which was paranormal. He brings me out of it, and he's in shock. And I remember saying to him, I said, so am I crazy? He's like, no, this is, it's there. It's in your memory. It's like, I'm intrigued. I'd like to go back again when we meet again, because we're out of time, and look at this further. And I said, okay, and we did. We talked about it in a couple more sessions, but the time seeing him was mainly about relationships dealing with my father. I'm not going to share with you this particular paranormal experience. I've never gone public with this yet because it's way out there. But I will in the future, okay? Seriously, I will talk about this. Now, I only brought it up at this time because that was my first regression, and I didn't know if it would work, and it did work amazingly. So I became an instant believer in hypnotic regressions, whether it is going back to your childhood or, as I would see in the future, going back to a past life. At that time, I started doing more research. I read Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. Also, John Mack had done some regressions with children. And also, I started getting familiar with Dolores Cannon. She took me back to an event that occurred in 1999. Now, Dolores Cannon was a best-selling author and past life regressionist, and she was a hypnotherapist. She specialized in the recovery and cataloging of lost knowledge. She was into aliens. She was into all these other types of things. And she also taught unique hypnosis courses all over the world. And she was specializing, obviously, in past life therapy since 1979. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2014. But what's cool is I actually have one of those regressions with her that I did back in 1999 or 2000. I have it on VHS tape. I also have another one documented on audio cassette tape, so I have that recorded. Those experiences are in the same line with the doctor I saw in Palatine. Different experiences, of course, but once again, something I will talk about in the future, in the form of one of my books called It Happened One Easter, which will combine all those stories and all those experiences into one. So we move ahead to the third regression therapist that I've had, which is this woman I'll talk about in a moment. But then there was also regression therapy that I'd done with a good friend of mine, Adam Bly. Now, Adam Bly is a church decreed expert on religious demonology and exorcism. He's in the Pittsburgh Diocese. He's also an auxiliary member of the International Association of Exorcists that is based in Rome. And personally, he's become a great friend. We talk about various cases all the time, specifically dealing with demonic cases and some angelic and religious experiences. When I had my first regression with him, which was in the year 2000, so it could have been 2007, 2008, or 9. At the time, he was a psychological service specialist in Pennsylvania State. And we went back to one of these demonic experiences that I had in the house I grew up in. And my dad was affected by this as well and terrified because something appeared beside the edge of the bed. And when it appeared, my dad was so terrified and I was so terrified. We both jumped off the bed. My dad grabbed me, protected me, then got on the phone to call the police, after this thing was gone, and then hung up. And then he started dialing again and hung up again. And he was in shock. After that, he didn't want to talk about it. And he kept saying, go to church, and keep praying. That was a shocking thing. And the thing that was amazing about that was it was one of my most terrifying experiences as this thing appeared beside the bed, lit up the whole room, screaming and screeching in this high-pitched sound. And it had a human form, but it wasn't human. It was horrific. The interesting thing during this regression as Adam was doing this was I was so terrified even in the regression that I didn't want to look at it. And we skipped it. But then I focused on my father. And even at a young age, I knew he was scared and terrified. But to freeze this and see once again from an adult, I started crying, getting emotional because I forgot how much this affected my father and how terrified he actually was. So when you do these regressions, not only can you see the details of the environment, but you also see your emotions and the other people's emotions as well. So I remember Adam and I talked about this experience, and we felt that going back into that moment could bring this demonic thing even into the present because it reawakens it. So we wanted to find out, why was I having these types of experiences? And the question was, what was my first incarnation in this life? Or the correct thing to say is, on this planet, what was my first life? So he took me back into a past life. And this past life went to the very first life that I had on this planet. Now, all I want to share at this particular time, because there's other things I want to go into in great detail, is when he took me back, I at the time did not recognize what time period this was or what civilization it was, types of people. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't familiar to me when I came out of it. But it was obvious this was my first incarnation on this planet. While I was under hypnosis and in awe of what was in front of me, he says, "What do you see? Describe what you see." And I said, "Well, I'm on this, it's like a pyramid, and I'm seeing all this vegetation and forest all around us and in the distance. It's like something you'd see in South America with all the trees, like in the Amazon. But I'm on top of this pyramid. The pyramid's all gold. I'm wearing all white. I have this staff with this, it looks like a giant pearl on it. And oh my God, I'm bald. My head is shaved. But I have something going around my head. I'm wearing these white robes with gold and these jewelry on it. And all these other people are standing in rows going down the stairs wearing the same thing, but they don't have this rod. And then I'm seeing water that's going up and around this pyramid. It's like going up on the side, like these little canals, using some type of magnetics that is built into this pyramid. And then he says, "What else do you see?" I say, "See in the distance, I see another pyramid with all these people lined up on the pyramid, and it's gold as well." Now, when I say pyramid, I'm not talking about this cone-shaped thing at the top that's pointy like a triangle, but it's built like that and then cut off at the top, and there's other structures attached to it. So it was what my memory and education and knowledge could describe. And then the crazy thing was I hear this grunt, and I feel something. I turn to the left, and I see this creature. And I see this creature to the left that we, through myths and legends, call a griffin. This thing was half eagle, half lion. It had the wings, it had the body of a lion, but the face of an eagle. And this thing had to have been like maybe 8 to 10 feet tall, maybe even a little bigger than that. But it would kind of hop and move slightly as it breathed. And it would make this like grunt sound, expand and contrast. And I'm looking at this going, are you kidding me? These things were real? So based on this time period, it was stating that these things were real. And he's asking me, well, why is it there? He says, well, it's like my protector. It's kind of like we have a guard dog and this and that. And it's like my protector. Then there were some other things that happened and I experienced from this particular life that I don't want to get into on this podcast because we could spend the entire podcast on it. But it's interesting. Here's why it's interesting. When we talk about a past life, how do we research that? Well, I always thought maybe I was in Peru, maybe I was in South America. I talked to an anthropologist and someone that knew about these pyramids in Peru, and I was talking to him. He says, well, that sounds like, maybe something in Peru. And he mentions that they were covered in gold, and as settlers came and explorers came, they would come in and chip away at it and take the gold. I found that amazing to me because I don't remember learning anything about that growing up, about Egypt and other pyramids and structures. Now, keep in mind, this regression was around 2007 to 2009, sometime around then, and I never really pursued it too much further than that. But last year, 2019, I discovered exactly where it was. I was looking up stuff about the imps and devils and stuff, and I saw this old hieroglyphic that talked about these little creatures. They were called Gallas, Gallas, and also the pronunciation is Gallus. They were great demons or devils of the ancient Mesopotamian underworld. So I start following this lead that I found on the internet while I'm researching about imps and little devils, and it takes me to ancient Mesopotamia, the land of summer, Sumerians. So I start looking up the Sumerians and how they were interacting with these little devils, and they believed in them, and they said that they existed in this underworld. And all of a sudden, I start seeing these sculptures and these drawings of Sumerians that were bald. And then what they're wearing and some of the further research of what they did, I'm like, oh my God. This goes back to that regression that Adam did in the late 2000s, like 2007, 2009, whenever it was. I was a Sumerian? So I did further research and I took a look at one of the buildings. There was this drawing and there's this artwork of one of the structures they found. Now, understand, Sumeria is now Iraq. And I look at this building and chills go through my whole body, my jaw drops, and I actually got on the phone and I called Adam and told him, says, you're not going to believe it. Remember that regression over 10 years ago? He's like, yeah. Guess where that life was. Here's what's interesting about Sumeria. It looks like I may have been a Sumerian priest. In Mesopotamian society, priests and priestesses were equals to the king in power and honor. They were mediator between the gods and the people. His or her job was to please the gods, to divine their will, and communicate to the ruler and to the people, supervise scores of other priests in performing sacred duties and rituals. And in the regression, based where I was standing, all the other people holding this rod, a griffin there to protect me, as well as the entrance into this place, and I was bald, which looking at some of these sculptures, it shows these priests, or at least some of them from the artifacts, were bald. If this is true, that I was a priest and I would communicate with spirits or do rituals and whatnot, and the gods and everything else. Isn't that interesting with what I'm doing within this life, communicating with spirits? And then when you look at my childhood experiences with these little devils and these imps attacking me when I was a little kid, not knowing why, think about all the lost knowledge. What did I know in that life that I do or don't know in this life? So the majority of my paranormal experiences from my childhood to present day, there has to be a connection. It's got to have something to do with that previous life as a priest with these rituals with the gods and spirits and these galas, these little demonic creatures that we were aware of in that time period, which I call imps now and I deal with in my investigations. But when they say the gods, yes, I saw these other beings there coming down. And yes, I saw these other beings appearing at these other pyramid that other priests were meeting. The crazy thing about this is when you do the research, you see that the griffin goes back to ancient Egypt, ancient Iranian, Assyrian, as well as Sumerian cultures. They were considered a protective deity. And the structure, the pyramid-type structure that I saw in this regression, in these photos, is identical. And I can point exactly where I was standing during this regression with this flashback to that past life, and where the griffin was standing next to me, as well as point out the stairs and where all the other people were lined up as well. The other thing historically that's interesting is now Iraq is all desert, but in the past, it was tropical forests. Even right now, as I'm talking about this, I'm actually shaking, and I'm just in awe that it's possible for us to come in contact with a previous life and connect the dots. But it took me many years later to figure out exactly where that was and what time period, because of this discovery and researching and looking up these galas. It led me right to it. So where do I go from here? Well, it's something I'm continuing to pursue, and it's like I need one day to go to Iraq. I need to go there. Probably really dangerous, but I need to go there. Well, let's move ahead to the next regression that I've done that was extremely emotional and impactful. I spoke briefly about that sometimes problems that we have in this life, certain karmas or whatever, can be affected and burden us in this life from a previous life. And sometimes we can't get past something. It's so hard for us to get by it, and we don't know why. Well, there's two instances in this life where I had those challenges. And because I could not get through them, I sought help through past life regressions. And I'm sure many of my listeners have had these roadblocks in their life, these challenges, and they can't get through it, and they're carrying it on present day into the future, emotional baggage, experiences, whatever it is. I'm the type of person that tends to look into this even deeper and find out the meaning so I can overcome it. There was a woman in Chicago, honestly, I can't remember her name because this would have been probably in the year 2000, 2001 or 2 that I saw her, which is almost 20 years ago. And I know I have it on cassette somewhere, and I'll probably find it within this next 6 months because I'm going through everything to start publishing start writing my book. So I need to find this tape, but I had it on tape. This past life regression that I'm about to share with you. I went to go see this woman because I had gotten out of a relationship. There was a girl I dated for almost 2 years, and I was devastated. I was troubled. I put a lot of effort into the relationship. I fell in love with her, which I know now, actually I didn't know then, was that she had a hard time loving herself, so it was hard for her to love someone else. She had been in a previous relationship before, so she was kind of comparing both of us in that relationship. And she was going in and out of the relationship, and I was doing everything I could to try to stay in this relationship. I think we've all been there. We get so insecure, whatever they say or they do, and whatever they do or say is we're reacting to it. And it was that time in my life because I wasn't talking to my dad, and we would talk off and on, but then I had this relationship where I was trying to put all my emotion into, and I was trying to get it to work, whatever I could do. But I was making sacrifices. It was affecting my sleep. It was affecting my family relationships. It was affecting my work. And it felt like it was stunning my growth, my development. And then I got to a point where I ended the relationship, and then I got back. And I ended it, and I got back. And I kept ending it because I knew she didn't love me, but I loved her, and I was tired of being hurt, but then I kept coming back. And it got to a point over a couple years, even when we were out of the relationship, I couldn't move on. I said, I got to move on. I'm really busy in the mortgage business. Everything else in my life is going on. I have all these positive things going for me, but I can't get past this. And it came to a point where I broke down, where I was thinking terrible things because I just wanted to stop the pain. So I told my mom and my sister, and I told them I needed help. So my mom sent me back to the counselor I had seen before about my father. And I went to see him, and then I went to see other doctors he recommended. And next thing you know, I was bouncing around to different counselors and therapists to try to resolve this, and I couldn't. I could not get past it. Nothing was working. I was obsessed. I admit it, I was. I was sick. It was really bad. It's all I thought of. No matter what I tried, no matter what I thought, my friends, everybody, they were all tired of hearing about it. I prayed, I did everything. I couldn't take it anymore. So I thought there's got to be some type of thing from the past going on here. So I went and had a past life regression done. What I'm about to share with you took on an even bigger meaning when I started doing Help My House is Haunted, and we started coming in contact with soldiers, Vikings, Romans, military personnel, and spirits that were trapped in all these different locations. There was a huge connection of me coming in contact with them and a reason why they were able to relate to me, communicate with me. They knew my past as well. So here's what I remember from the regression that took place around 2001, 2002. I met with this woman therapist downtown in Chicago. Told her I was heartbroken, having a hard time getting over this relationship, and it was affecting me, and I was obsessive. And I knew it was wrong, and I needed to overcome it. We had described what was going on in this life. I was having a hard time getting through this woman. She said, okay, let's find out what the connection is with this woman. Have you had past lives with her? And whew, I'm hypnotized, put into this collective consciousness, takes me back to that time period. And here I am some type of Viking warrior. I've got a beard. You don't shower for weeks. And you fight and die by the sword. And she says, where are you? I'm in Europe, and I've got some type of Germanic crest that my family or the group I was with lived by and had. And it was this, it was like a sword going down with these two hands with the sword, and the sword was going into something. That was our crest. And she goes, okay, tell me what you see. I said, well, all of a sudden I'm going into this bar. I'd been gone for a while, and there's this woman. She's like she works at this bar, at this tavern. She's putting all the drinks out, some barmaid, and she comes running into my arms, and I haven't seen her for a while, and I'm totally in love with her, and she's in love with me. And this is the same girl in this life. Oh my God. She looks the same too, dressed differently, of course. He said, all right, tell me more. What's going on? I said, well, I would go off to war with my soldiers, and we would be gone for months, and we would come back. And I told her as soon as this one war was over, or whatever it was going to go on, that we were going to be together. We were going to get married or whatever it was. And then I was gone for like 6 months or so. And I came back after many months. And something had happened. She was with some other guy, or some other guy had basically been with her or raped her. Or at least that's how I felt. And she was embarrassed about it. And she was acting different. I was so upset that I wanted to go after this person, and I wanted to kill him. And ironically, this man had the crest of a lion, but the lion was like a side profile on his chest plate, on his shield. That was his crest. And she did have some feelings for him, but then she had feelings for me. That's what was confusing about this, because I'd been gone so long. She had thought maybe I wasn't coming back, but now that I was back, she wanted to be with me. But then, I guess when he got word of this, that I was back, and knew how she now felt, he went and killed her. Because then I got all emotional during this regression. He's like, what do you see? She's like, no, I can't look at this. I can't. She's like, tell me, what do you see? And I saw her in this barn. She was dead, and her body was impaled on the side of the inside of the barn. There was a sword in her leg, and there was a pitchfork or a sword that was right through her eye and one part of her face. And I was devastated. I was completely heartbroken. I fell to my knees with my sword. I looked up and howled and screamed. And I thought part of me was being punished for all these wars and battles, for all the men that I had killed in the villages we had gone through. Because I would fought in the wars, and I would fight to the death because I wanted to come back. I would not die on the battlefield because I wanted to be with her again. I had to survive. And now here I was, staring at her lifeless body. I had won and survived the wars, but now I had lost what was the most important thing to me, and it was taken away from me. And to see her lifeless, her body like that, and I'd seen horrible things on the battlefields and done horrible things on the battlefields. But to see someone that you loved taken away from you, I couldn't deal with it. So I wanted revenge. So I found this individual, this other knight or this Viking, and I challenged him to a battle to the death. So as we were fighting and our swords were clanging, we're going at it, I could tell that I could best him. But as I was doing that, I was thinking of the things that he did to her, and I was thinking of other things that I may not even know about, and then the fact that she's gone, and I'm thinking, even if I beat him, what does it matter? Because she's gone. She's dead. I can't be with her anymore. My purpose for life and coming back from the wars means nothing. And as I'm fighting him, I'm like, I want to be with her. So for something, it popped into my mind to step into one of his thrusts of the sword, just to end my life. So I took a step forward, and as he went to lunge with his sword, and I went right into it. And it went right through my stomach. And I gasped. I looked into his eyes, and I grabbed the sword with both hands, and I thrust it even deeper into me, and I gasped for air as I was choking. I felt the pain, but then I also felt this warm, cool feeling going into my body. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he was in shock. He couldn't believe that I just did that. And he's like, why? And with what life I had left, I told him, because I love her, and I want to be with her. And then I died. She goes, tell me what happens next. What's happening next? I said, well, my soul's leaving my body, and I'm racing up towards heaven, and there she is. Oh my God, she's beautiful. She's in all white. And I'm running towards her, and she has her arms open, but she looks sad. Why is she sad? And she says to me, why? Why did you do this? I said, what do you mean? I wanted to be with you. She's like, but it wasn't your time. I said, yeah, but now we're together. She's like, we always would have been together. But you still had all these other things you were supposed to do. You had this whole life ahead of you. And people were relying on you, battles and this and that. And things and events that were going to change because you were there. Now it's not going to happen. And all these people are going to be affected. And I'm like, but we're together. I did this to be with you. She's like, I know, but you don't understand. We have to go through this again and change the outcome. Because you took your life to be with me. We have to go back in a similar situation. And we have to resolve it. It is part of our now soul path, is to correct it. This has now become our karma. And I'm like, I don't understand. She goes, you will. So all of a sudden I come out of this regression, and the woman's like, wow, this is interesting. So we start talking about my present relationship and the end of the relationship, what I was going through, and the ups and downs I had. She says, you need to get on with your life, because even though she's still here and you can't be with her, you need to keep going, because you have other things you have to do, and you can't let that relationship stop you. And there was other details too. Now, I'm sure hearing this, some of you can relate to this in certain time periods in your life where you couldn't move on from a relationship or the loss of somebody. So I'm telling you, it's important that we all need to move on. We need to live our life, and the fulfillment of our life is important. But here are the incredible details about that past life regression in Europe during that Germanic time period that related to this particular life and experience with her. In this life, she had a birthmark on that leg where the sword was through the barn. She had a slight imperfection in her eye where her eye would droop, and she had had a surgery on it, and she wanted to have another corrective surgery to where eye was slightly off compared to the other eye. That's where the sword or pitchfork was, through her eye and that part of her head in the barn. So it was as if this birthmark and this thing she had going on with her eye was affected in this life from that life. But the boyfriend she had right before me, she used to nickname and call him the Lion. Is that not crazy? And I know some of you may be thinking, but wait a minute, you have a lion that you use, the shield. Well, that's different. That lion is face front, which has to deal with Michael, the archangel. That's my brand. Has nothing to do with that past life. At least that's what I believe. Shortly after this, I met him face to face. I was at a nightclub called Crowbar, and one of her girlfriends was there. She came up to me. She says, oh my God, so-and-so is here. I said, you're kidding me. And I had heard he wanted to fight me because he was jealous and upset that we were going out. Because which I didn't know at the time, she was still kind of seeing him when she met me, and she ended up leaving him to be with me. But I never knew this. She never told me. So he wanted some revenge over a couple years. She says he wants to talk to you. I said, all right, great. Looks like we're going to get in a fight, right? Well, I stand up. He walks up to me. He looks at me. He looks me up and down. He goes, I look him up and down, but now keep in mind, I now know about this past life. And I don't want to fight him because I know it doesn't end well for either of us. So I'm very calm. He looks at me and I look at him, and he goes, well, you're a lot bigger than I thought you were. Honestly, I took that as a compliment. And I said, yeah. He looks at me and we both stopped because we knew there was something else going on here. And out of his mouth, he says, do you want to do a shot? I said, I would love to. So we go up to the bar and we both get a shot. And I'm realizing I fought this guy in another life to the death. And I gave up my life to be with her. But here we are again, reincarnated in this life, doing a shot, and we can make a difference. And he looks at me, he goes, I really loved her. And I said, yeah, I did too. But obviously she didn't love either one of us, or she didn't know who to love. He goes, well, I got a really successful business right now. And I said, yeah, I have a purpose, and there's things I'm trying to do to correct things. So we both bring up the shot, and I go, well, here's to each one of our successes that we have a better life. And we said, F her. We now have our own lives to look forward to. And we do this shot. We drink it. We shake each other's hand. We smile, look each other in the eye. And I never saw him again after that. We changed our futures. We fulfilled that karma. Is that not crazy? So this past life regression assisted and helped me. It didn't fully help me because I had another dream after that because I thought, well, maybe I could get back together with her. Maybe I would end up being with her. And then I had a dream one night. She appeared to me in the dream, and we're in the astral plane. She says, they told me I needed to meet with you, that it was okay to do this. Normally it's not allowed, but you're still stunted and you're not moving ahead. You still have this emotional baggage because of our relationship. You need to let go. You need to let go of me. I said, okay, why? And she told me. I said, you're right. She says, we will be together again in another place. I love you, you love me, but we must both go our separate paths and fulfill our paths and destinies because other people are relying on us, and we have to have those experiences individually with other people to fulfill the evolution of our spirit and our soul. And I totally understood what she was saying. And I knew it. And I realized that soulmates, and whether we're a soulmate or not, we just have had these experiences, needs to be played out through other lives with other people and other soulmates for us to grow. So I remember I woke up that morning, I jumped out of bed, I went to work, and I was like, wow, you're at work early. And I never looked back. I got on with my life. I had fulfilled that previous life, which was not resolved. It ended up getting resolved in this life, and we went on and did what we needed to do. Many years later, could have been like 5-6 years later, I got a message from her, an email. I emailed back, and she apologized everything we went through. I said, it's okay, because I saw the truth about our souls, and I saw that we all have a purpose, and I wish you the best in this life and the best in my life. So we had this forgiveness for each other and wishing each other that we would have the best of experiences within this life that is meant for us. So this healing process went on as well, but it had to happen in stages till you get to that point where you understand. So in dealing with this was just incredible because there were clues within this life that supported that past life. Now, I found when I was communicating with soldiers and Vikings, doing Help My House is Haunted, 2017, and then 2019 overseas, I was communicating and seeing them, and there was some type of respect, as well as even my co-hosts were like, God, you're always getting these soldiers. They're like responding to you. Because somehow some of them, if maybe all of them, knew that I had a past life as well, very similar to theirs, as a knight, a Viking or warrior. Incredible, isn't it? And I understand you may be thinking, do I still love her? Do I miss her? Do I think about her? No, not as you think. I'll always love her soul, as we should for all souls. And maybe one day in some other life we will have an experience again. But right now it's not necessary because there's other things for me to do. And there's been other people I've loved as well. That's what life is. So just think, there's many other lives we have too. Here's another one. A couple years later, I was dealing with some other different types of challenges, and I was having this fear, this block I couldn't get. And I didn't know exactly what it was. So I went back to this woman and talked to her. She was like a spiritual counselor who did regression, past life regression therapy. And I went and talked to her about some of these blockages that I had. She goes, well, do you want to have a regression and go back? I said, you know what? It worked for the other time. Let's do it. And we found that I had this great fear of failure. The fear of failure had caused me not to follow through and complete things, or not try and not even do it because, well, I'm going to fail anyway. Why Why are you starting something and not finishing it? Why are you not, you get all excited about something and then you just crash and you don't complete it. Or you don't go do it. So she brought me back to some previous lives. One of them, we see I'm in a car with a mother. I'm in the back seat. I'm 10 months old. I'm a little baby boy. Mom's driving, and we get in a car accident, and I died. It was to teach the mother something, but it ended up not working. The mother ended up doing the opposite of what she was supposed to do later in life. In another life, I'm a boy. I'm 7 years old, and this may be sensitive to some people, and it was sensitive to me as well. I'm on this farm. I had been kidnapped or something, and there was a farmer there that was abusing me. And when he was done abusing me, he had dug this pit on his land, threw me into the pit, and he put metal bars over it, put plywood over it, dirt over it, and basically I was buried in this like tomb. I mean, there's a square area I could crawl around, but not much, and I was emotionally destroyed, physically and emotionally. I was beaten and everything. And I just curled up and he sealed it and he left me there to die. And as time would go by, it was completely dark. I would just hear sounds of noise, and sometimes it would rain and water would come through, and then I would hear him on the tractor. And the tractor would even go over the area because it was completely covered with dirt. And I would hear it and I would call out and nobody would hear me, and became thirsty, hungry. And I basically died, curled up. Horrific. So I'm like, okay, so these lives that were never fulfilled and pretty much sucked. What is this all meaning? It's meaning that I never had any accomplishments in these lives that just were never fulfilled. They didn't end well. She's like, okay, we're learning some things here, some struggles you've had in each one of these lives. Let's go to another life and see if it's affecting your current present life. Now this is where it gets interesting. You hear about people come and go, and people share lives together time and time again regarding friends, family, and we just spoke about lovers. And the answer is, of course, yes, we all come back together, some more so than others. She takes me back, and all of a sudden, she goes, okay, what do you see? I go, I'm in some time period. It looks like the Roman era. There's Romans everywhere. Oh my God, I'm dressed up as a Roman. She goes, a Roman what? I go, I'm a soldier. She's like, okay, what's going on? I said, well, we're going into people's homes, and we're taking stuff, and we're taking from our own people. That's what it looks like. She's like, okay, can you start to get into your memories and thoughts? I go, yeah, we've conquered all these other lands, and we've come back, and our military is so strong politically that we've taken from all these other countries. We've become so powerful. It's like our ego now is we're now taking from our own people. Like we, need to be treated a certain way with respect, and they need to give to us, whether it's food or gold or whatever, serve us. And I'm not happy with that. That's not right. These are our own people. I mean, I was once them. She's like, okay, what else do you see? I goes, well, there's two other soldiers that feel the same way I do, that we should not be doing this. She says, well, why don't you speak up? I goes, well, we can't. If we say anything to our superiors, we'll be killed because we're going against Rome. You don't turn in your own Roman soldiers. She says, well, what did you end up doing? I said, well, we planned to leave because we didn't want to be a part of this, so we escaped. What do you mean you escaped? Well, we can't tell them we're leaving, or you can't leave Rome when you're a soldier. So just one night, 3 of us left. We didn't have any family that were left. We didn't have any wives. So we just left the country. Where did you go? We didn't know where we were going. We just said we wanted to leave and we'll find a life somewhere else. Well, did you come in contact with anybody? Yeah, we did. During our journey, we went through a forest and we saw these, they look like gypsies. They were in these caravans and stuff. They were cooking and they were afraid of us at first. I said, it's okay, it's okay. I said, aren't you with Rome? He says, no, we've left Rome. So we befriended them and we traveled with them for a little while. We ended up kind of protecting them. And we would cook, we would clean, and we would do things together, find food. We just wanted to find a new place to go, so we were on the road with them for a period of time. She's like, okay, fast forward what happened. We died. What do you mean you died? All right, rewind. Tell us, go step by step, what happened? Well, we felt something wasn't right, so we moved ahead of them, and we started going through this forest, and all of a sudden, I hear a branch, and I look up, and there's a Pict, which were these tribes, these savages. And he had a spear, and he jumped down, surprised me, and the spear went right through my chest. I was impaled. What do you see next? Well, I can't breathe, I'm dying, the pain, but then all of a sudden, it didn't last long. I start floating. I'm out of my body. I'm going towards the sun that's going through the trees. I'm seeing the sun, and I'm feeling this peace. What's next? I'm floating up into the sun, and then all of a sudden, I'm into this light, a bright light, and the light, and standing in front of me was one of my best friends in this life. His name is Mike. He's standing there. I'm like, Mike, what are you doing here? I just died. I'm in this regression, and I'm seeing this, and you're standing right here. He's like, hi, Chris. He goes, I was your brother in that life. I died on the battlefield, and in dying, you decided to go to war and fight for Rome to avenge me. And here I am now. I go, but how can you be right here if you're still alive and my friend in this life? Because you don't understand time. You're accessing in between your time. But time's irrelevant on the other side. We're all here on the other side. You're just experiencing a past life. And I'm here to tell you, my higher self is here to tell you, I can be in multiple places at the same time. So you're here right now, and you were my brother in that life. He's like, yes. So wait a minute. I remember when I first met you in high school, one of my best friends introduced me to you, and when we shook hands, go, hi, my name's Chris, and my name's Mike, we looked at each other really weird, and we kind of laughed, says, God, I feel like I've always known you. You said, yes, and we instantly became best friends. He says, yes, we did. Incredible, isn't it? So in looking at this, I feel I failed by leaving Rome. It was my idea that me and the other two soldiers ended up dying by these Picts because we were attacked by surprise. And then I believe that these gypsies were killed too, and I felt responsible. This burden I had been carrying with, like, you know what, maybe I should just stayed in Rome. At least we would have been alive. And the other two soldiers, I had coerced them to go with me. So I had to remove this pain. What's interesting about being a Roman soldier is my life, I've always been interested in that time period when you have Christ, you have the apostles and the different Emperor Constantine, and even a fraternity. I joined a Sigma Chi fraternity, and Emperor Constantine was, some of our rituals and stuff were based, our Jordan standard and everything was based on some of the history of Emperor Constantine, which is fascinating. But while we were in the UK, we came in contact with so many Roman soldier ghosts and spirits that spoke to us, and we captured them marching. It was phenomenal. So our past lives that we've had, the experiences that we've had, we can bring them into this life and have those connections in varying degrees. So through this therapy with this past life hypnotic regression therapist, we were able to resolve some of my past karma that I brought in of failures or being failed. Because in rights, I didn't fail. Those were just lives that were played out, and there was unfortunate circumstances. And that fear of that, of trying and doing things, had been stunting many things in this life. Is that not incredible? So what is deja vu? Well, deja vu is in this life when you've been to some of those places or recognize certain things that have to do with those past lives. And you remember, God, I feel like I've been here before. I've seen this before. But it also has to do with something, I'm going to blow your mind, is alternate realities. What is an alternate reality? Well, multiverse, parallel universe. What are those things? When Wikipedia calls a multiverse, it says from science fiction to science fact. There is a concept that suggests there could be other universes besides our own. where all the choices you made in this life are played out in alternate realities. The concept is known as parallel universe, and it is a facet of the astronomical theory of the multiverse. Now, a parallel universe is also known as parallel dimension. Alternate universe or alternate reality is a hypothetical, self-contained plane of existence, coexisting with one's own. The sum of all potential parallel universes that constitute reality is often called a multiverse. So basically, each alternate universe carries its own different version of reality. Here's something else I found online. In 2014, Paul Steinhardt from Princeton University told Scientific American magazine, "Our observable universe would be just one possibility out of a continuous spectrum of outcomes. So we have not explained any feature of the universe by introducing inflation after all. We have just shifted the problem of the original Big Bang model. How can we explain our simple universe when there's a nearly infinite variety of possibilities that could emerge from the Big Bang? To the inflationary model, how can we explain our simple universe when there's nearly infinite variety of possibilities that could emerge into a multiverse?" So quantum physics and science, they're even talking about infinite variety of possibilities and multiverses of different realities. Now, I remember in 2006 when I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico for 4 days with 3 other psychics. We took a remote viewing course with Lynn Buchanan, who worked with remote viewing with the military. He was the author of the book, The Seventh Sense. He stated to us what they found out, the remote viewers found out, under the government projects was, there was a matrix. And in this matrix, like this cube, one can access other realities. Now, there's not just going back in time and going into the future, as well as seeing things presently in other parts of the planet. But there's a multiverse, another outcome, an extension of our choices and decisions, another existence of yourself. Now, how is how is it possible? Well, I can't explain that. I can tell you real quickly an experience which I've talked about in one of my podcasts a couple years ago. Experience I had of consciousness outside connecting with higher consciousness that stated all things are possible. I'm the Alpha, I'm the Omega, and everything that happens in between. When you make a choice and you come to a crossroad and say you have 3 different options, you choose one of those options, what happens to those other 2 options? If you think they just disappear, yeah, they disappear from this reality, but where do they go? Because they've been conceived, thought of, energy can't be created or destroyed. Possibly you can use that scenario. They have to be played out somewhere else. So they're played out in an alternate reality, such as what Lynn Buchanan's talking about with this matrix, in a variety of possibilities, in an other multiverse, in another universe, a parallel universe. You fulfill that choice, that path, but you're not aware of it in this life, unless you connect with higher consciousness and you can see the different types of outcomes. Now, we're running out of time on this podcast, so I'm going to extend it just a little bit to talk about some brief experiences I've had with alternate realities. Now, I remember before the election, when Trump and Hillary were running against each other, and everybody was like, who's going to win? A lot of people thought Hillary was going to win, and Trump won. And my belief at the time was Clinton was going to win. I had seen for a couple of years, Spirit Box was saying Clinton, this and that Hillary was going to win. And I was fearful of that because I felt if she won, we were going to go to war with Russia. And there was going to be a world war, that there was this agenda to go into Iran, Syria, take over the banks, and then go against Russia. And I didn't want a part of that. And I remember I'm praying, God, I don't want to go down that timeline. I don't want to be a part of that reality. I'm sorry, I can't do it. With the war and the radiation, the nuclear, I just don't want to be a part of that. And I remember the night before the election, I just said, I don't want to be here. I don't want to go through that future that I see. And I remember I woke up in the morning, I sat on the edge of my bed, felt really weird. I said, all right, I go look at my phone, I'm going to see who won. And I go look at the phone, and I see in the news, Trump won. I'm like, what? That's not the reality I've seen. That's not, oh my God. I jumped. I quantum jumped into an alternate reality. My decision was so heavy that I didn't want to be a part of that other reality, which means another part of me is playing that out that I'm not aware of right now. Now I'm in a different reality. So somewhere else, in another dimension, a parallel universe, Hillary Clinton is the president. God knows what they're going through. In this reality, God knows what we're going through. I'm not going to get into the political stuff here. There's good and bad. Some people say one, some will say the other. But this is the reality that I am consciously aware of right now that I'm in. I saw that. Another thing I want to share with you. I remember 2009, I was in the mortgage business. I was in my office sitting at my desk. One of the loan officers comes up. He starts talking about Bitcoin. Says, hey, 2009, I guess, maybe 2010, 2009, I think. Said, hey, we're investing and everything, and do you want some of your checks this month or next month to go into a pot for Bitcoin? I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. I'm seeing if anybody else wants to do this with me. Now, mind you, I don't remember the exact details on how they were buying it or where they were mining it or whatever they were doing. But I remember him bringing it up and saying if I wanted to invest about $1,000 or so or a couple $100 into it. I'm like, Bitcoin, what is that? And he tells me, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really interested. I don't know. And I was curious about it, but I got distracted and I wasn't interested. Well, that's when Bitcoin was like, what, 1 cent, 10 cents? And the only way to get it was on the internet, and I didn't know anything really about all that at the time, so I didn't express any interest. I mean, he was smart. He was ahead of the game here. He had heard of something, and he was trying to find ways to invest and get other people to invest with him. Can you imagine buying $1,000 of Bitcoin then? You'd have like, what, close to $1 billion when it hit 16,000? Bitcoin ended up hitting right around the high of $18,000 or $19,000 a coin. And if you bought it at 1 cent, 10 cents, put in over $1,000, do the math. So imagine if I listened to him and I did research on it to find out what it was, and I started investing a couple $1,000s on it, kept it. I started thinking about that. Because I remember when my friend told me to buy it $3,000. He said, you got to buy money. I said, I don't have any money at the time. And I'm filming in the UK. And he's like, go buy, take whatever you got, put it in there. And it went up to 16,000. I'm like, oh man, I should have listened to him. But imagine if I would have listened to this person in 2009 regarding the Bitcoin. When you say hindsight's 2020, absolutely, I completely understand. But then I was like, wait a minute. That was a turning point. And I remember I was thinking about that heavily one day when I went upstairs that night and I was brushing my teeth. I said, God, I wonder if I made a choice in that reality to buy Bitcoin, what would that have been like? Can I experience some of that? What is it like? And I'm sitting there brushing my teeth, and all of a sudden, I feel this wave go over me. My body's tingling. And I start having all these different memories that are flooding. I'm like, what? And I start getting weird, like even lightheaded. And as I'm brushing my teeth, I slowly start going slower and slower. Everything starts going, slowing down. And all of a sudden, in my mind, as I'm brushing my teeth, my environment starts to change. And I'm in some just mansion-type condo. And I realize I have this big corporation business. All these people work for me. I have multiple properties, and I'm a billionaire. I have all these cars, and I'm seeing these garages and everything I got, people that work for me. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm a billionaire. I did buy that, and I got totally involved in that. I went down that path. Now, I understand some of you can be saying, well, it's just your imagination. I said, there's no way for me to explain what it's like standing there. And you feel this shift, this quantum jump, as if your very soul and spirit is connected with another reality of yourself that has this entire life around it that is different than this life. It's just, you can't explain it, but you know it's another part of you that is experiencing it and playing it out somewhere else. Now, as I was experiencing this, connected to it, I feel and hear this voice say, what do you feel? I said, I'm still me. It's still my soul and my spirit. It's still, but this fragment of me has a different life, environment. Yet as I dug deeper into the emotions and the memories, my interests were still similar to this life. And it was still me. I still like the rock group AC/DC. I still love coffee. I still love animals and have cats. And my friends and family are still important to me, but their lives are somewhat changed and different too. So there's voices like, so what has really changed? So, well, I haven't changed. It's just my environment changed. They said, yes, your reality's changed. And you have many other lives where all these realities are different that are being played out, but you're still you. Do you understand? I said, yes. So what is really important? Is it important that you have all these other things going on, or you recognize who you truly are? I said, well, obviously, I recognize who I truly am. He says, what else have you realized from this? I've realized that in all these other lives, I'm fulfilling these things, these wishes, these desires, these questions, these possibilities. Infinite possibilities are being played out in these parallel universes. What you think you become, what you think is a possibility and has to be played out somewhere. The Creator allows that to happen through us, but yet we're not aware of all these other realities. We're only aware of this one. Sometimes it crisscrosses in that deja vu, or those interests or those worries, and it does affect us and bear us down. But if we realize that what is regret? Regret is feeling that, well, I should have done this, I should have done that, this hindsight of da. Well, what if you knew that as soon as you think of that, it's already being played out somewhere else? Now you come back to present and realize the responsibility you have in this life to fulfill this life and accomplish what you can now and every day forward. So if you think, I should have stayed in that relationship, I should have got out of that relationship earlier, well, guess what? In other lives, other realities, you did. So regardless of the pain that you've gone through in this life, you are now in present, like also almost on a clean slate. Because in actual spirit, soul reality of all lives, you've experienced all those things up into this moment. What do you want to recognize and realize within this life from this moment forward? It helps you remove pain and regret, and it helps you realize, wow, I got like a clean blank canvas. What do I want to paint on this canvas in this life? Then you start moving towards that, knowing you don't have to worry about the past. You can just work on the future. But what you can also do, what is one thing that helped heal me from my car accident, is the neck pain. I said, okay, then obviously in another life, I did not get in that car accident because I knew I had some choices where I would not have been in that place and time. If I would have listened, which I didn't do, I wouldn't have been in that car accident. Correct. You would not have been. So can I start to borrow from that other life, that healing, to where I'm perfectly healthy in that other life, and allow that healing energy come into this life to heal, to where both realities are starting to bend towards each other, and they're not necessarily becoming one, but they're borrowing from each other to create a separate new reality that's the one I want to be on. So I'm going to use this other reality where I was perfectly healthy to bring that into this one to heal me in this reality. And guess what? Start healing. Quantum jumping into other realities is a completely new topic and something I'm still researching, but I found some benefits from it in the little that I've understood of it. But I know it's possible. So we have to end with this. I know it's still like you're probably like, oh my God, I want to go more into this, but realize there's a universe, a metaverse, a hyperverse, omniverse, everything verse, a megaverse. There's an absolute verse. And this absolute verse is the absolute, the creator, in all these different universes and everything, experiencing all things through us. And many of them we're not even aware of. So we can't take on those responsibilities of understanding all of that until our time comes. We die. And we are joined with all of those personalities into one. On the other side, we become part of the collective, which is the creator, all consciousness, the absolute. You can take a look back through past life regression to heal some things in this life. You can realize that choices you made or didn't make are being played out in other realities. So what are you going to do in this reality from this moment forward, knowing that some of the things have been filled in other lives, but what can you be responsible for yourself to resolve and to grow and accomplish in this life? You start writing them down and you start working towards them. That becomes your goal, your focus, eliminating and leaving behind the regrets, the worries, the attachments. Be free from that and look towards your future in this life. This is Chris Fleming. You've been listening to this month's edition of Spirit Talk. I'll see you next month.
Get that strange feeling, when you recognize something, you just can't place it? Well, we know what that is. That's called Deja Vu. That's Deja Vu.